it's not on the printed material yet, but the slides will be available online. Okay, so the idea of my presentation is that I'll try to make it as interactive as possible. Okay, if you don't want to pay attention to any attention to what I have on the slides, it's okay. You can ask me questions because I like to make this session as interactive as possible. All right, now, okay, some of the topics that I will cover in no particular order. Why IDS is difficult. Okay, common issues in the implementation, deployment, maintenance. Some of the common questions that people ask, about IDS and stuff like that. And the vendors, okay? A little bit about the vendors. I'm sure you guys are, outside the booth, there's Enteresis, an IDS vendor as well. Probably some of you have talked to those two Enteresis. And, what are they doing actually? Okay, so I'm going to tell a little bit about that. And what you should be looking for if you're looking for an IDS solution. Oh, by the way, before I start, is there anyone here, have like implemented IDS in their MSS, that is Managed Security Services Solution. And now I'm a freelance security consultant working on a Sasquatch, a project that I call Sasquatch, which is an advanced threat management system. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, talking about IDS adoption. All right, now what we see nowadays is that more and more organizations, even the government, okay, I've used to work, I used to consult with the government, to government, implementing IDS as part of their security infrastructure. Okay, so people are buying IDS, people are buying Dragon, okay, people are buying eTrust, okay, from Computer Associates, okay, people are spending big bucks on these technologies, okay, but what we don't see is that they don't know what they're spending their money on. Okay, they just buy it and they're like, okay, all right, we got this, but it looks good. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why later. Okay, what we see, vendors are pushing IDS products to organizations, and organizations are buying them by the bulk. Buy. It's part of the IT spending. Okay, what we don't see is that vendors does not care about the client's security. All right, security with the dollar sign, right? And clients do not know how to properly implement them, right? So this is the common scenario here. Okay, right? Okay, IDS vendors brochures are full of buzzwords. Name it: heuristic detection, hybrid IDS, protocol analysis, state-of-art event management and aggregation, all kinds of buzzwords. All right. Now, what we don't see is that these so-called features and technologies are clunky, difficult to use, and most of the time requires more investment. Okay, anyone have ever used an IDS console before? Yes, no? Which product? Pardon? NFR. How do you find it?
Basically, the deployment part is easy.
Pardon?
The deployment part is easy.
Deployment part is easy. The fine-tuning part, yes. Yeah, that's what organizations are. Like one of the issues that I could talk about is like the deployment. Deployment part is very difficult. Fine-tuning, easy. But then again, there are products that's like even the installation part is very difficult. Even the configuration is very difficult. Even like requirement studies takes like weeks before deployment. And when deployment comes, there's always a problem. Fine-tuning, a lot of too much data, these kind of things. Yeah. So this is, the problem, some of the issues that we have. Okay. Now, other products, very advanced. Okay. Especially things like, IPS, intrusion prevention system. Okay. It can stop, it can drop traffic. It acts like a firewall. But, do you really need an IPS in the first place? Okay. And vendors will like sell you this, sell you that. And you have to sometimes you have to buy like different parts to make them all work. Okay. And they become complicated to use. I've I've got in touch with uh, one of the local government agencies, okay, one of the ministries. They spent a few $100,000 on e-trust, okay, computer associates IDS system. I think it's probably like a one sensor and one what do you call this management console, and it cost them 250,000 K, about that figure, and the guy in charge of the IT told me, hey, I'm not seeing any traffic at all. So it's so ridiculous, okay? You spend so much money and they're not getting anything from that product. Yeah. Okay. So buzzwords, heuristic detection, hybrid IDS, protocol anomaly, protocol analysis, anomaly detections, all kinds of buzzwords. And you'll be getting these buzzwords when you go and meet the vendors. Okay. We have over few thousand signatures. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about signatures. So one of the things that you have to be careful when we talk about signature-based IDS, such as SNOT, such as Enteresis, or maybe other products. Okay. All right. Organization thinks that IDS is one of the solutions to their security, and this is the mindset that they've been having. But the fact is, IDS is not a solution. It is a tool. Just like what the previous speaker, CM Wong, said, it is not a solution. It is part of the tool. Now, this mindset occurs because we are so used to products like firewall. We are so used to products like antivirus, right? And once we install firewall, we know right away that this firewall will filter traffic, okay? Once we install antivirus, we know that, hey, there's no virus coming into my system anymore, or at least, for the time being. But when you put in IDS, it's like, what do you get? What do you get when you put in IDS? All it does is just sits there and monitors the traffic or monitors the activities of your system and generate alerts, generate reports. And because of this passive nature of IDS, people are thinking, what is the value for me? All right. Now, you can think of a different way. If you are an IT manager in charge of several servers, system admin, for example, if you are a system admin and you're in charge of server farm with different different servers like Win2K or Linux or FreeBSD or Solaris, all right. One of the things that you can use IDS for is to profile the threat to your organization. Okay, threat profiling. All right, if you're running an e-commerce, based on the data and the analysis that is done by the IDS, you can tell your boss, hey, look at this chart, look at what we have found. 80% of the attacks goes to the Win2K server. That's why we're all busy all the time patching the Win2K server. What do we do next? Maybe based on that, you can tell your boss, hey, let's migrate, okay, our server to Unix or Linux or FreeBSD, because with this amount of attacks coming to the Win2K server, it'll be very, very difficult for us to maintain, and it's very, very difficult for us to keep the system up to date. So this is one of the things that you can use IDS for, to justify spending, okay, your department's spending, right? Your critical servers, okay, your database probably on a separate LAN or maybe on the same DMZ or maybe on the same LAN. You can detect, okay, you can know that, oh, there are so many attacks towards your database, okay? Probably you might want to change that. Maybe you want to switch your design in such a way that let's put our database behind the firewall, less attacks, and ensure that only trusted hosts can connect to it. So this is one of the uses of IDS. Threat profiling is used to better determine your network, to better understand your network, how you can optimize your network so that you can reduce threat. Okay, so the idea is to reduce threat, not to stop threat, not to like, it's not one magic bullet solution. Okay, so again, bear in mind, IDS is tool. Okay, it's not a solution. Okay, it doesn't solve your security problem. There are a lot of steps. There's a lot of steps to be secure, but having an IDS is just one of it. Okay, and it is a tool that can be used. Right? Okay. Okay, so why is it all this, why is all this confusion? Why is there so much issues? Why is this all this misunderstanding of IDS? Well, IDS is still relatively a new technology. Compare IDS to, say, things like technologies like cryptography. All right, IDS research begins aggressively, okay, in the US, especially in the US, early 1980s, right? If I'm not mistaken, the first commercial IDS was what's the name of that again? I can't remember the name. I think it's Real Secure. Is it Real Secure? I don't remember. And that was way back in about around 1990s. So IDS technologies are still very, very new. Okay, I would say it's still very new, but we have, and over the past 3 years, we've seen an explosive growth in IDS research and development. For example, SNOT, okay, has enabled many people to be aware of IDS. I mean, when I first started a few years ago, uh, before when I was in college, the research that we did was host-based IDS, distributed IDS, and it's so boring. It's so like even the topic itself is so boring. It's so full of buzzwords, like heuristics, like anomaly, and then a few years later, there's not, and it's so easy to use, it's so easy to understand, and it makes people, appreciate the technology, understand the technology. But then again, compared to other products, compared to cryptography, compared to firewall, IDS is relatively very, very new. Okay. Again, unlike other security devices, users don't see the immediate value. I've explained this earlier. Okay, I put an IDS. Okay, it's different. I get the same feeling, compared to when I install a firewall. Once I install a firewall, I know it's doing something. Okay, once I install antivirus, I know it's doing something. But when I put an IDS, you have to wait, you have to see, you have to watch the monitor. Yeah. So these are the things that makes people wonder why they want an IDS in the first place. Of course, vendors, they are very good at selling. They are very good at pushing their products. They tell you buy. You need this. You need this product. It helps you to protect your network. That's not true. It only monitors. It doesn't protect. Okay. They never mention things like, hey, it helps you to reduce your threats. It helps you to manage your threats. It helps you to better understand your network. It helps you to identify the weaknesses. Okay. Take an example. You have an old version. You have a misconfigured load balancer. Okay. Misconfigured load balancer will produce traffic that is not, unlike normal traffic, and this will be picked up by the IDS, and it's not a malicious event or anything. But the fact that it shows up in the IDS logs means that there is already something wrong in your network, and this something wrong, you can't detect it like, by normal system admin or network admin, what you call this, investigation or whatever. So that's the value of IDS. It's one of the values. Okay. Again, the concept of defense in depth. Have anyone heard of this before? Defense in depth concept? I think what we've been exposed to is Okay, external firewall DNZ, another firewall internal. Okay, or external firewall with three interface card DNZ, external internal. Okay, and that's it. Maybe you have your maybe you have like virus gateway, antivirus gateway, for example, and that's about it. Okay, now what the vendor is not telling you is that you should practice, defense in depth. And what is defense in depth? It means that if one layer of your security fails,
Because of
an
an
extra
extra
layer of
layer.
protection where the user, where layer of protection is that OS does not contain any local vulnerabilities. So the attacker could not do anything. Okay, so this is an example of it. Okay, patching your servers is one of the concept of defense in depth. Okay, so that's one. Any questions? You can stop me and ask, before. I mean, I don't want to be like the one doing the talking all the time.
I just want to say, the way
Yeah.
I think that vendors normally sell this is they call it like a burglar alarm.
Yeah, that's true.
The way they normally sell it.
Yeah, they normally sell is a burglar alarm. In fact, IDS, I mean, even when I told people, hey, IDS is just like a burglar alarm. Yeah, so that's how that's true.
But that gives people the impression that it's a product that, it's like, hey, this makes sense. I put a burglar alarm in my house.
Yeah.
What they don't explain is
Yeah.
that you need to have somebody who...
Yes, true. They don't tell you after you install this, you have to fine tune, you have to like filter the alerts, and even before you install it, they don't tell you, hey, you have to understand your network. You don't just put it there and expect everything to be running, and that is very, very true. Before, the vendors would say, okay, let's do a what do you call this, a study of your network. Let's see what kind of traffic that is flowing through, okay? These kind of things, and that is not taking place. And like what you say, yes, they tell you, hey, it's a burglar alarm, and the vendor likes it, because it's a burglar alarm that will alert you. Problem is, it will alert you, n times. Yeah, so that's very true. Yeah, like what you say. Okay, then so understanding your network is very, very critical. Okay, if you want to deploy an IDS, okay, know what you want to monitor before implementing IDS. All right, do you want to monitor this segment, that segment, every segment on your network? Learn about your network traffic. Okay, you will save lots of headaches when the alerts start coming. Okay, how many percent of the traffic are TCP traffic? How many percent of it is IP, ICMP? How many percent is UDP? How many percent is ICMP, and so on? Okay, how many percent of your traffic is HTTP? Okay, and then 100% is other protocols. So understanding your network and at least creating a baseline of your network traffic before you implement IDS is very, very important. Okay, don't just say we want to monitor traffic at this segment. Okay, this segment contains our critical server. All right, your database server, your banking server, your e-commerce server. But if you don't know what's going on, once you start install, hey, how come I'm having like all kinds of weird traffic? Yeah, so it's critical that it's one of the first steps is to understand your network. Right. Okay. Deciding on IDS product, differentiate between the solution and tool. Okay, IPS can be considered a solution. IDS is a tool. All right, I've explained this. Anyone have any experience with an IPS product here? No? Not yet? Okay. My opinion of IPS is that if you don't need it, don't. If you don't understand how it works, forget about it. Okay? Don't even bother. It'll be a waste of time and a lot of headache. Okay? The hype nowadays is, of course, IPS, Intrusion Prevention System. But the fact is, if you yourself don't understand, if the if it does not if it doesn't meet your security requirement, forget about it. Don't be carried away, don't be swept by the hype. Okay, now this is one of the very important rule, one of the important practice when you want to buy product. Don't be swept away by the hype. So right now, the hype is IPS, and every vendor is like saying, hey, we have an IPS plugin to our IDS, we have an IPS plugin, it acts just like a firewall, but do you really need it in the first place? So I myself, it's not a big fan of IPS. I believe firewall can do its work just fine. I believe that IDS can do its works, very well. And having something like IPS will cause you a lot of headache if you don't understand it, and especially if you don't need it in the first place. Right? Okay, so IDS is a tool, okay, it's not a solution. Okay, and it lets you, okay, for example, analyze what is going on in your network, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Now, again, vendor comes to you, they say, protect your network from worms. He's just trying to dig into your pocket. That's what they say. Okay, you need this, you need this. That's the case. Okay. If a vendor says that a particular IDS helps you characterize the most critical threat in your organization, then their product may be worth it. Okay, because this vendor knows what is important, what is crucial to your needs. Okay. Rather than them telling you, okay, you need this, you put this here, you put this here, and then you can monitor traffic, and that's it. That is not the way. That is not the kind of talk that you want. That you want to listen from your vendor. Okay. 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 Again, now I've said that reduce threats. Okay. You may want to listen more. And now you ask the vendor how. Okay, how do you reduce threats? Okay, ask your vendor, hey, you said they can reduce threats to my organization, but how? Okay, is it a combination of data analysis? Do you have like some funky graph? Is it like a verification? Okay, now if the answer is very long-winded, forget about it. Okay, now if a vendor tell me it will reduce threats to my organization, what I would expect him, what I would expect the salesperson to tell me is that, okay, it has this function called attack verification. Okay, assume that you have an attack. Assume that you detect an alert. Okay, HTTP alert to one of the servers on your network, and that server is running IIS. So what I want that guy to tell me, hey, before it tell you that there is an alert, you will check whether that server is actually vulnerable or exploitable by this particular attack. Right? So that way, I don't have to deal with a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of alerts, because earlier on I've mentioned that when a client install an IDS, they said they got a lot of alerts. Now this is because there is no verification on the alerts that are detected. Okay, so look for vendors that can tell you before we report. Okay, before we ring the bell. Okay, we make sure first. If it's yes, serious, only then we tell you. Okay, so that is that is one of the things that you probably might want to look for from your vendor: attack verification. Okay, right. So, like what I've explained, okay, identify whether it's a false alarm or whether the target is really vulnerable. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. Also, before buying, okay, ensure that IDS should be easy to use, okay, well fitted to the capabilities of the user and well filtered to the needs of organizations. Like I've mentioned, if you don't need IPS, don't buy, okay? And if the graphical user interface is so difficult to use, forget about it. Even if you are, because you don't want to waste your time looking and trying to interpret what the IDS tells you, okay? Then you forget about it, okay? It should be easy to use, okay? For example, I've tested a demo version of Dragon and Theresis. Okay, I have a Pentium 3 box in my, and I have a Pentium 3 box in my lab. All right, I download the trial version, run it, and the memory is 126 meg, and it crawls that PC. And after that, I say, hey, forget about this. I won't even bother looking at it or evaluate it. On the other hand, I run Snot, I install, I can still do some other things on my server. So if the product is, difficult to use, difficult to install, you don't want to waste your time, all right? Because you're saving time, because you're trying to save money, and you have to know how to do it installation. Because again, you don't want to rely on the vendor all the time, correct or not? Okay. Then, like what I've said, most IDS, especially their management console, are difficult to use. Find it difficult to fine-tune the the signatures. Okay. All right. So, vendor hypes. Okay. Beware of vendor hypes. The life of this product. Okay, I'm going to talk more. Any training support. What this product actually do? What is the main function? Okay. Now, if your vendor is the type of vendor that understands the concept of defense in depth, okay, you should be, engaging this vendor. But if your vendor does not have even, a basic security fundamentals, forget about it. All right? Okay. Engage your vendor. Don't talk about the product. Don't talk about the product that they are trying to sell to you, but instead, talk about other things. Talk about, infrastructure, talk about security, talk about deployment, talk about maintenance, and talk about defense in depth. Okay, the product can, you can push, talking about the product, you can push later. If they want to demo, hey, later. Okay, why don't we talk about, this is my network, okay? What is the best defense in depth, I can use, I can deploy. What is the best technique, right? Is the product able to do what they say? Okay, if you have to, if you must, get a third party to test and evaluate the product for you. Don't rely on, PC Magazine, those reviews that you read on PC Magazines. If you're able to test it yourself, then that's good. But if you have to, get a third party to test it for you. Okay? Again, are they clouding you with like all these terms, all the latest technologies, hybrid IDS, anomaly detection, IPS, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So first and foremost is not the product, it's the vendor themselves. Okay? Do they understand the concept of defense in depth? Okay? Are they well aware of your organization's need? Of course they know, yeah, you need an IDS. You'll say that, but before that, are they aware of, things like defense in depth? Okay? Are they capable of integrating their products into your current security infrastructure? Okay? And this is one of the things, if they are not able to do this, you might be having big problems when you try to during deployment. Okay, you have to tweak the firewall. You have to allow some connections and things like that. and this, okay, installing IDS, implementing IDS should not disrupt your network operation. It should be as flawless as possible. Okay, have to ask the vendor, okay, will there be any changes to my network? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? Okay, is the hardware appliance that comes with product tamper-proof? Okay, hardware appliances are very interesting. Okay, I'm going to talk about that later. It's something to do with money as well, cost. Okay, and do they harden the OS on which the IDS is running? Okay, do they harden the OS? Okay, do they take extra measures? Okay, is it tamper-proof? Can anybody just like unplug the cable? You know, can anybody just, you know, connect to the console and tamper with the appliance? So these are the things that you want to check. Okay, right. Get assurance that the vendor or the distributor will be able to support the product in the long run. Okay, you don't, you know, especially in here in Malaysia, we have a lot of distributors selling IDS products, you know, selling products on behalf of the vendor, but you know, they're probably not really supporting the product. It's probably their last batch, you know. So get assurance that you'll be getting updates, you'll be getting supports, and even if possible, you know, training, online help, things like that. Okay, good and committed vendors are the ones that package training as part of the product. Okay, it be very cost effective if the training is packaged, or if not, probably need to fork out, you know, extra money to pay for training. Okay, and check us, missing K there, ask whether there's, you know, help and support online. Okay, or even there's any internet communities. Okay, so don't be content with installation, don't be content with the product generating reports, but you know, online help, okay, tutorial, training, you can get this from your vendor as well. And a good deal is if they package it together with the product, you know, not on separate. And the thing is, vendors like to, for the training, you know, you need to pay X amount of money. Yeah, so try to squeeze bargain from your vendor. Hey, let's package it. Those kind of things. Okay. Common marketing strategy. Okay, what does this product do? Common marketing strategy is invent a new feature. Okay, IPS, for example. All right, and vendors, yes, they will invent new features to their products. Okay, and then, you know, they say that, okay, this new feature makes our product stands out from the rest. It's better. Okay, now problem is, okay, does this feature solve your problem? Okay, you know, do you really need that feature? Okay, and do you understand how the features fits into your security infrastructure? For example, IPS. Okay, so vendors, you know, being software developers, being software engineers, okay, they invent new features to their products, okay, which they use to claim that their product is superior. Okay, and if that feature is, you know, if it solves your problem, then go ahead, go for it. If not, you know, don't bother about these kind of features. Okay, product's main function. Okay, does it perform protocol analysis, or is it just a simple packet sniffer? Okay, understands the product main functions and determine whether it fits your requirements. If your requirements is to verify every traffic that enters your backbone, you probably need something like protocol analysis. You know, IDS that is capable to perform protocol analysis. If you're just concerned with attack and threats to your organization, then simple packet sniffer. Okay, or if you're concerned with both, then you can have a combination of the two. Right. Other questions to ask. What product is best fitted to your organization's security goals? This is yours. questions that you should ask yourself. How painful is the product to install? Okay, if you're planning to install it yourself, or if you're planning to engage the vendor. Okay, for example, I was trying to install, a trial version of Dragon. I give up because, it comes with like, very long pages of manual. Okay, is it easy to run? Okay, is it stable, for example? Is the management console intuitive to use? Right? And signature bloat. Signatures, okay, are the files, signatures, okay, IDS, a few types of IDS, and the most popular ones are the signature-based IDS. Okay, for example, Snort is a signature-based IDS, and it detects attacks, okay, based on the signatures, okay, the matching signatures. Now, you have to be very, very careful of vendors that deliberately inflate the product with irrelevant signatures. Why they're doing this? Very simple. They say that, hey, you know what, our product can have over 3,000 signatures. Okay? Meaning that it will be able to catch any attack. Okay? So they tell you, hey, you know what, you have this. It's lots and lots of signatures. Signatures are updated regularly. You don't even have to pay for it. But the fact is, what are these signatures actually? Is it like really, are they really relevant? Are they just like multiple version of the same signature? Right? So, these are the tricks, that vendors are telling you. And if you cannot see the signature file yourself, it will be very, very difficult. Okay, some vendors, the format of the signatures are proprietary. It's binary. You can't see it. And some vendors, they use plain text file, which you can see, which you can view. So if, be very, very careful when a vendor tells you we have lots and lots of signatures, we can detect this, we can detect fragmentation, we can detect blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that is what we call signature bloat. Okay, vendors claiming that we can detect any kind of attacks over any kinds of network. Okay. Now, again, back to the same question. Common complaints. Okay. Once I've installed IDS, I receive so many alerts. Okay. Look for solutions that are able to perform some kind of verification. So this is my advice. Right. There are so many data. Strategize on backup solutions, and create policies on alert retention. Now, what I meant by alert retention is that maybe for data, for alerts, you keep up to 6 months, okay, and after that it is flush. Okay, so what you probably want to look for is that those 6 months data, before you flush it or before you burn it into a backup media, you have some kind of statistics, okay, for that 6 months, rough statistics, right? Not just like, anything that, 6 months ago, okay, you don't know what's going on, okay? So those are the data retention. Of course, the format, of course, the content will be like, not as comprehensive as the current one you have. It only contains like, okay, how many alerts, what are the statistics, blah, blah, blah. So create policies, work with your vendor, how you can work on alert retention, okay? And again, figure out how the software deals with all data. Does it delete it, or do you need to back up it somewhere, using a media? Okay. Now, the big money question. I believe that IDS should be cheap. Okay? After all, it's not really a new technology. A lot of people are aware of it. And again, when you buy IDS from the vendors, it usually comes with, a complete set of hardware appliance. Now, if I think most of us understands that hardware components are very, very cheap, getting cheaper nowadays. All right, you can go to Laoyat and get like a very cheap PC, a very cheap server for for a fair amount of money. But if you buy from your vendor, you buy an IPS from a vendor, it usually comes in with an appliance, and they charge so much. But the fact is, hardware components are getting cheaper. So why charge so much for IDS appliance? So the vendors is making money. Okay. Okay, vendors should have experience in integrating IDS into current security infrastructure. So why spend so much time doing requirement study? Okay, they'll tell you. I'm short of time. Okay, bang for the buck. Okay, this is just an example. Commercial IDS sensor, 15. Actually, 15 is like very, very cheap. Okay, this is how much you probably get for a single network location, 48,000 ringgit for a single network node. Okay, you can go open source, 18,000 ringgit for one network node. Okay. Okay, so I'm last two of my last slides. Okay, again, things for you to remember: IDS is a tool, not a solution. Okay, beware of vendors that use lots of buzzwords that you don't understand, and don't get carried away with the buzzwords. Okay, so many alerts. This can be solved if vendor is smart enough to provide alert verification into their products. Okay, in that way, it saves you a lot of time, a lot of headaches, fine-tuning, and so many data. How long do you want to keep data? This is part of your policy. Okay, the end. I'm sorry I don't have time. Questions. One question. Okay.
One question. Okay.
Yeah.
If we have an infrastructure whereby with two layers of firewall,
Yeah.
inner layer you got database,
Yeah.
and then another segment you got the servers and a group of end user. Outer layer you got DMZ zone. How will you integrate the IDS into that type of structure?
You have a firewall.
Two layers of firewall.
Okay.
Alright. And the inner layer of firewall you got the database.
This is your internal, right? So you have your database.
Okay. And then a group of servers.
Okay, you have a group of servers.
Then you have a group of users.
Group of users. Okay, these are users.
And then your DMZ, you have your mail server, web server, right?
This is the MZ, yeah?
And then outside your internet.
Okay.
So how do you integrate your IDS?
Okay. Looking at this diagram briefly, okay, there are a few possible network points where you want to place your IDS. One is you place here at the external. Okay. One you can place here, monitoring your DMZ zone, and another one is here, monitoring your internal network.